Welcome back, everyone. I know that was a very quick break. I will ask that the panelists and the moderators could turn on their cameras. And I would like to introduce Evelyn Ramos, who is the Associate Director of the Career and Professional Development Center at Stanislaus State. And I will hand it off to you now, Evelyn. Thank you.
I'll try to find a good spot here on my camera. Thanks, Julie. I'm happy to be here. I'm really looking forward to our panel today. And thank you all for coming back. My name is Evelyn Ramos. As Julie mentioned, I'm the Associate Director with the Career and Professional Development Center here at Stanislaus State. What an amazing keynote. Thank you so much for that information, Katrina. It was so valuable. I really hope everyone that's attending was able to take away some suggestions that can help you feel more confident in your search. Next, we do have an amazing panel lined up for you. We have prepared a few questions for our panelists, but we'll definitely do our best to leave some time at the end for your questions. We know that we want you to know we're here to support you. You know, everyone that's here is supporting you, helping you build that professional confidence, and especially helping you prepare for the fair next week. So hopefully you've all signed up for that. And our panelists are actually folks from our sponsor organization. So AbbVie and CrowdStrike. Wanted to give you all a thanks. And also our panelists want to give you a shout out as well. If I don't get a chance to at the end, just really thankful for your time and for sharing your expertise with us and with our students and alumni. I am really looking forward to learning more a little bit about your path. But I did want to take a question from Katrina's slide here and get us started off with, tell us about yourself. So if I could have each of our panelists introduce yourself, and I can call on you guys if it's a little bit easier for the flow of things. I'll go ahead and call on you, but how would you tell us about yourself? So let me see here. Andrea, if I can get started with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea. I recently graduated from the University of Illinois at Chicago. So I know they're attending today, so that's exciting. But I graduated with a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and a minor in finance. I interned at AbbVie about 2 years ago, or a year ago, so going into my senior year. And then I was offered a full-time position as an associate scientist in the pharmaceutical technologies group. So essentially, I'm a process development engineer. That's my main focus. So yeah, it's been a wonderful time, and I'm so excited to share my experience with everyone.
That's awesome. Thank you, Andrea. Juan, how about yourself?
Hello.
Hi, I can hear you. I just can't see you. I'm not sure if that's...
Let me try. Okay, now you can see me. Hello, everyone. It's very nice and I feel very honored to be here. My name is Juan Ramirez. I am based in Bogota, Colombia. And I studied business administration, and I joined AbbVie in August 2020 in a trainee program called Commercial Early Career Program. Is designed for those of us who don't have any expertise in the pharma industry. So it's a rotational program that basically allows you to have a good understanding of the company, the industry, and it's been challenging. It's been great. It's been great. It's the first time that I work in pharma and loving it so far.
That's awesome. Thank you, Juan. Ramiro, I have you next on my list here.
Hi, guys. My name is Ramiro Villarreal. I am a Falcon Complete analyst at CrowdStrike. I went to the University of Texas, San Antonio, where I graduated back in December of 2020. So not that far long ago, but it feels like forever. I've had the honor of interning over the summer of last year with CrowdStrike and being converted to full-time, where I triage and remediate malware of all different types on Linux, Mac, and Windows machines, and try to help stop breaches wherever we can for our customers.
Thank you, Ramiro. That sounds exciting too. And Stephanie, how about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Steffi Walls. I recently graduated from St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas. I began my journey with CrowdStrike in May of 2020 as a sales development intern and recently converted full-time to the Global Sales Programs Coordinator in January of 2022. And I help support our sales development and corporate sales programs along with our sales internship programs. So very fun to be on the side of being an intern to transitioning, being on the recruiting side of that same internship program. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Definitely sounds like we have a well-rounded group of folks here. And I think you all answered our first question, which was how many of you started off as an intern with your current organization? So I'm glad to see you are all interns at one point. As a career counselor, we highly stress the importance of seeking internships, right? To get that hands-on experience. One of our questions was, or it seemed like a frequent question was, what can I do with my major in the panel recently? So I really am glad to hear you are all interns. With that in mind, can you each speak a little bit to your internship search process, right? Like how long did it take? How many positions did you apply to? Because there may be a misconception that it's very easy to land an internship where, you know, folks may not be comfortable in applying. So if you could each tell us a little bit about your internship process, the search. We can go in the same order, or if someone wants to field that question. Juan, I see you unmuted. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, I can go first. Well, I forgot to mention that I did the MBA from 2018 to 2020 at ESADE in Barcelona. And I remember back then, I think I sent around 600 to 700 applications. And listen, I know this sounds maybe like a lot, but if you think of it, searching for an internship, it's almost like a full-time job. So if you send maybe 50 applications a day, just do the math, and it's actually not, I mean, those are not so many applications. But I wish I got at least some of the advice that Katrina was giving you earlier. I think it would have made things easier for me because I wasn't getting any call. And of course I was doing something wrong, but I didn't know exactly what I was doing wrong. So I wish I had those advice earlier. So in my case, how I built my internship is that I had a very clear goal. I ended up not working for the company that I did the internship for because of COVID. Well, they stopped the hiring processes for everybody. So it was a very painful time to find a job back in 2020. However, in 2019, well, I had very clear goals in terms of what industry I wanted to work for. At the time, I wanted to be in the beauty industry. So I got an offer from L'Oreal, also because I was doing things during the MBA that made sense and that I could sell the recruiter as, you know, I'm not saying this is just my passion. Here are the facts, and this is the extra work that I'm doing to prove you that, you know, this is what I want to do. So I think that those are the elements. Of course, I have plenty more, but I think those were the key ones to get myself an internship in L'Oreal in Paris.
Awesome, thank you. There are definitely a lot of positions. Did the rest of you feel the same way, where you had to apply to many positions?
Yes, I call it serial applying, just kind of like going after each application, LinkedIn, Handshake, you know, anywhere.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it can definitely be time consuming, but I often tell students too, it's kind of like a job in itself. You have to make sure you're dedicating some time to it and not putting all of your eggs in one basket, for sure. And this is also applicable to all of you. What was a transition like from intern to employee?
For me specifically, since I most recently transitioned this past month, my manager did a really good job of ramping me up throughout my internship for the position I was going to get hired for. So it really didn't feel like much a transition at all. I continued like my normal, you know, daily tasks. And then obviously with more bandwidth and more time now that I was full 40 hours a week, she added more responsibilities and more tasks, and it's been kind of like developing from there. So that's really the main transition, and getting to network and talk to a lot more people now that I have more time, and meeting more people from the company. So it was honestly a really smooth transition on my end.
If I can speak to that, since I also just recently converted at CrowdStrike as well. My internship was for the summer, but mine had been extended due to a couple of the interns were expected to get offers. So it was like a week and a half in between internship to full-time conversion. So I basically picked up exactly where I left off, and I was back on the team, and everybody was asking about how everything was for my little week and a half vacation. But I picked up exactly where I left off.
Awesome. Thank you.
So my situation was a little different. So I would say as an intern, any hurdles or any complications, any problems with your projects, you definitely would have to run it by either your coworkers or your manager. Being a full-time, I think I'm able to have more of those responsibilities and that ability to make the decisions by myself. And they kind of expect you to have a bit of more independence and try to figure it out before running to your managers and everyone in the department trying to solve the problem. So I think it's definitely something similar to what you see in college too, freshman versus senior year. You definitely gain that confidence. But of course, I interned in 2020 and became a full-time the summer of 2021. So I would still relatively say I'm pretty young in the company.
I agree. Definitely. And something I wanted that I think came up for me as you guys were all sharing a little bit about yourselves, you all really started during the pandemic, right? I feel like, so did many of you have a virtual recruitment process? Did you all have a virtual recruitment process?
So for myself, I was actually recruited in person in 2019. And I think a month before I was supposed to move on to campus or AbbVie campus to be an intern. And then they said that everything had to be remote. So yeah, it was a bit devastating in 2020, but they did their best. And I mean, work is now remote too, so.
Juan, I see your hand was up. Is that it also?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I remember, well, when I came back to Colombia from Barcelona, well, first of all, I didn't have any job offer at the moment, and no company was hiring because of the uncertainty. And well, thank God I got a call from AbbVie, and the whole process was virtual. I had 6 interviews, a case study that I had to do also virtually, and it was weird because I think nobody, maybe nowadays we know, but back then we didn't know anything about like virtual etiquette, whether you have to look in the camera, whether you have to dress a certain way. I mean, those are things that you kind of like, when you have a one-on-one like on-site interview, you can use some of your body language to leverage maybe your speech or whatever, but when it's a camera, it's it's a screen, so it's actually more challenging to convince someone to hire you basically. But the whole process was virtual. It paid off actually. so yeah, it definitely was a new experience for me.
Yeah, I feel like we definitely all had some growing pains there. With that in mind, we are helping prepare our students.
Said that I left, but I'm here. I just had to switch.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm in another webinar.
With that in mind, we are helping prepare our students for our virtual fair next week. So, are there any golden nuggets you might give them for how to prepare for a virtual fair, right? I think students have had courses virtually, they've had that online experience, but they haven't always had to have their camera on, for example. So if they're not comfortable about those things, what are some suggestions you might have either as recruiting folks or as a team member? Is there anything that stands out for you that really makes a good impression online?
I would say that when I was interviewing, I think it was a little bit hard to envision yourself when you're from the comfort of your home. So be as professional as possible and also dress the part, look the part too, and have that confidence as if you were seeing them in person. So be as in it in your head as you can, I would say, is definitely a plus.
That's definitely great advice. Definitely dress the part. Go ahead, Stephanie. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with Andrea there, and dressing the part and looking the part. And whenever you book these like one-on-one meetings with a rep from like a company, making sure to like be engaged as possible, curious about the role, about any other role opportunities. It's kind of like a get to know each other, like you're trying to get to know, say you're getting to know CrowdStrike and then CrowdStrike's getting to know you. Be super engaged in those conversations and focused, and yeah.
And I would also add to that, something that really helped me is because everything was virtual. I also got into the recruiter's LinkedIn profile and I saw their journey. And you know what? Just also ask them questions about, there's nothing that we love more than speaking about ourselves. And recruiters, I think everybody does, right? So when I asked them, for example, I don't know, at a certain position, I believe you challenged this situation. How did you deal with that? So it kind of like, even though it's virtual and it's unpersonal in a certain way, you can turn it around and make it memorable, make it I think it's also uncomfortable for the recruiter, right? It's not just for you. So if you are able to turn it around and make it like a very nice conversation, I think you already you're halfway through the hiring process. I think that helped me, at least at Avi. I kind of managed to do so. And I think research people that you're going to have the interviews with.
One last thing I can kind of mention, if you want to get more comfortable with one-on-one sessions, is try calling a friend just on Zoom, just to get more comfortable and have the camera on. Try looking into the lens of the camera to make sure that you're maintaining like good eye contact. Over time, it'll get less awkward and then it'll just become natural. Most of the times in day-to-day situations, you'll probably end up being in a Zoom call with coworkers, with higher ups. So it's just good practice to just maintain like good eye contact and just to feel, a little at ease whenever you have to turn on your camera.
Sounds like practice is definitely the key word. Whether it's interviewing or telling me about yourself, or just even looking at the camera and just feeling comfortable. So I appreciate that. It's definitely some great advice. Hopefully students are taking some notes. I think with that in mind too, I wanted to ask about what kind of skills and experiences did you find you mostly used in your internships? Sometimes students will tell me, I don't know if I should apply for interns yet or internships yet. I don't have too much experience. I tell them, well, that's where you build it, right? That's kind of where you're supposed to be building your experience or applying anyway, what you're learning. Are there certain skills or experiences that you felt made you more competitive or that helped you be more confident in your internship? And if you could speak to those, definitely feel free to share.
I'll jump in. For me, I wish I'd realized this skill earlier on in my internship. And well, it started out remote. So I had never been to the office. I had never met anyone prior. So it was just me and my laptop. I wish I had known earlier to learn to be uncomfortable and reaching out to people within the company I could create a connection with, have those coffee chats, like just to learn more about the company at the time. I didn't do that until like a few months into my internship. So definitely like networking within the company that you're in is definitely very helpful, especially with, cross department, collaboration. That's a huge function that I believe we used a lot at CrowdStrike, and within the sales organization, we, work with a lot of different departments. So definitely learning to reach out to someone you may have never talked to ever and be comfortable, starting those conversations and coffee chats for sure. So yeah.
Thank you, Steffi.
I would like to add to Steffi's comment that as an intern, I think the employees love speaking to you. So when you send them a message or an email, just etiquette saying, hi, is it okay if I put a meeting on your calendar? I'd love to get to know you. I'm an intern from so-and-so. They love it. They love it. They love it. They love sharing their experience and their time at that company. Obviously, it's a moment for them to advertise why you should also work there post-college. So I wish I could still take advantage of that. But as an intern, I really love networking. And then next thing you know, they're in your meetings when you're a full-time employee. So it works out in the end.
That is also very something that I also did, Andrea, and at L'Oreal, even though this was, I mean, on site before the pandemic, I remember I subscribed to something called Mystery Lunch. So each week they assign you to someone different within the company to have lunch with. And it was so good because you end up meeting people from logistics, treasury, marketing, finance. And then actually, if you are kind of lost in your career path, speaking with someone that is actually in the position gives you so much understanding. And that's how I actually, discarded so many positions. I think there is a profile and there is a talent for everybody. And yeah, so it kind of like makes you shape some things. Something that I found also super valuable during my internship is the fact that just kind of like find the right balance between being humble, but also show your potential and your will and just this passion that drives you because it's noticeable, I remember people from my MBA, they were saying, no, I don't want to do an internship. I'm sure that they're going to put me to print things and make copies. And I really didn't care about that because for me, it was all about the experience. And as soon as I managed all those operational tasks, they put me to do some strategic things. And that's where I showed them, that if they put me to do copies, they were wasting a resource that could be allocated into something more, let's say, that added more value to the department. So I ended up still anyways making copies, but I didn't care. I didn't let the frustration of it just get to me. So just resilience and be humble, but also very, very, very smart and show your potential.
I can think of throughout my internship, I was fortunate enough to be on a team of interns on the Falcon Complete side. What kind of helped us was teamwork. We all decided to just set up a weekly chat or a weekly Zoom call where we go over the week, the agenda, and then we all just took it upon ourselves to find a mentor within the team, the whole Falcon Complete team, whether that be in the UK or in Australia or in the US. So we would reach out to a different mentor to say one piece of advice, or if there was ever a chance where we could shadow with them, do detections or answer tricky customer questions to see like the investigation side of Falcon Complete. And that give you a good idea of what to expect and how to approach a situation from different angles. So it was a good idea to open our minds up to not just be limited. And if there's ever a wall, that there's always someone to reach out to for help.
That's great. I think these comments all definitely speak to our some of the other fears that we address as career counselors and that we all experience as, first-time professional job seekers. Do you all mind raising a hand if you're a first-gen student? Like, do you identify as a first-generation student, maybe first-generation professional? Yeah, so, I think a lot of our students, especially, at Stanislaus State, I believe over 70% of our students are first-gen. I assume it's a similar pattern for our campuses. And Katrina actually spoke to the value of networking and a challenge of networking as a first-gen student, potentially. So what are your thoughts on networking as a first-gen student? And what are some strategies that maybe have helped you with this skill? Stephanie, I know you mentioned, you wish you had taken that initial step earlier, but, was there something that helped you take that leap and start making those connections?
Yeah, for sure. I actually went out to LinkedIn, our company's LinkedIn for CrowdStrike, and looked at who within the company had gone or, goes to St. Edward's University or the university I was attending. And so from there, I found someone and I reached out to her like, hey, like, I admire your career path. I also noticed you went to St. Edward's, I go to St. Edward's right now. I would love to set up some time to like talk to you and, learn about how you got from St. Edward's to CrowdStrike, just something like that, and finding those little connections. And it doesn't have to be a university. It could be same hometown. It could be you notice they have a dog in their profile somewhere, or some people put on their LinkedIn profiles that they like to hike or do, other hobbies. So connecting on little things like that helps a lot.
It reminds me of the question one of our attendees had, or one of our audience member has, is why does it matter that they know about you? And I liked how Katrina said, like, well, we still have to be able to work with you. So I appreciate that. Like, you're taking something about them and making it about like your curiosity, right? To learn about them and about their path. Was that the case for any of our other panelists? Just like, how did you feel about networking? And was there something that helped you feel maybe more confident?
Yeah, I would say networking is important so you get to feel how other people are in the culture and in the company. It's definitely different than, so to say, trying to network with other professors, and then it gets incredibly awkward. I would say when you want to meet other employees, you want to know how they are. Obviously, not everyone is like you, but just being friendly and putting your best foot forward, and then them understanding to get to know you. So I know with big full-time positions, usually the last round is a round table where you get to meet everyone in the department that you're applying for. And there, it's really important to show your personality, not pretend to be someone that you're not, because they're trying to find the match. And if they're not like you, then it's not a best fit, and then you'll find something much better. So yeah, that's my advice.
For social connections within the workplace, I find it the same way. As Steffi had mentioned, there was a lot of people on the team that had similar interests, and not everything was just like work-related talk. It was more so like, what are your aspirations? What is your end goal? This might not be the department that you want to stay in forever. We have plenty of people on the team who have come in from Intel, from Overwatch, which is our threat hunting department. We have a lot of people who come in from sales or go from the Falcon Complete team over to the sales department. Now that they know the product like the back of their hand, they can market it better and help bring in potential customers. So there's always something that you can gain out of just friendly communications. First of all, you get like a new friend. And second, you get to see like what other options there are in the future. And the possibilities could be endless for you.
And I mean, just for me, the word networking was very bizarre to describe. Like there was no just do this and that and that, and that is like a mathematical formula for me. It's just at one point I just said, okay, you know what, I'm just going to reframe or rephrase or, define this word something different, because it was putting a lot of pressure on me. Sometimes I just don't feel like being an extrovert and talk to people, sometimes I do. But I want to say something, or just bring back a phrase that Ramiro just said, and it's just friendly, connections, and just be human and be just authentically worry or care about others within the company. And also for me, networking was more in terms of being professional, kind of like discussing about topics that I was interested in, product development, sustainability, internship programs, going to career fairs. That was my type of networking. So that was more, more, I could grasp that instead of just being some kind of concept that is over here and that everybody tells you to do and you don't really get, what you have to do. So I just forgot the name network, and I just said, okay, just going to, talk to people and ask questions. That's for me how I took out of the pressure of networking.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned an extrovert, right? Being an extrovert versus being an introvert. I'm a complete introvert, and I hate the idea of networking because I see it as someone just passing out business cards, right? Not really knowing what to connect about. Something that that this reminded me of was one of our alumni came to a presentation and said, you know, I kind of tried to stop trying to be interesting and try to be more interested in what people have to say and make that connection. So I definitely think that's a good way to a good thing to keep in mind. Just reframe it, you know, rephrase it for something that works for you and helps you feel more comfortable in what you're doing, but still meeting the goal, which is to connect with folks. That's all we do, right? Is, you know, we do work because we need to work, but nobody works in silos, right? It's important to make that connection with folks. So actually, I saw a really good question in the Q&A, and I have a few, but I'd like to throw this one out there because I think it's so helpful. How did you decide where to intern at? We tell students there are so many internships, but how do you decide where to go? How did you guys decide? I see Ramiro with his hand up. Yeah, if you want to get us started.
So I honestly, I just really love what I did from day-to-day tasks, even as an intern. From day one, they treated us as professionals, as a Falcon Complete analyst. My assumption was that the internship was to put us in line with like mostly customer calls and questions, or to help support with any troubleshooting tasks. But from day one, we were given a computer with a worm infection, and they asked us, how do you fix this? Where do you go from here? Given all the tools, internal and external tools that we can gather, it just felt like a capture the flag all over again. I had to find malicious artifacts, persistence artifacts, everything that I have taken the time to learn came into play. So it felt like a video game, but it was also really rewarding to see that I could do this in the real world, and I could do this for a customer as well.
Definitely sounds engaging.
For deciding where to intern, it was 2020 heading into the summer of 2020. So everyone was thinking like, oh, the pandemic, you know, is going to end, you know, everything will start to open up at that point, you know, we're going to go back into the office. So when CrowdStrike reached out, I was super excited. And, you know, at that time, there was a lot of news regarding ransomware attacks, since everything was going virtual. Being vulnerable in the cyberspace was just way more on the radar. And so I was noticing that a lot. And so that definitely piqued my interest when choosing CrowdStrike for sure. So very happy I did. And fun fact about CrowdStrike, I think when we first joined in 2020, we were at like 2,500 employees. And since then it's doubled in size to almost 5,000. So it has definitely grown a lot since then. So yeah.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
sorry,
Andrea.
Juan.
No,
Okay.
go ahead, please.
Okay. So my first internship, I worked at a beverage and brewery company. So essentially working in the food industry, working in quality, and I really enjoyed that. So that was my sophomore year. So after my junior year, I said I wanted to do something a bit different, go into a different industry for exposure. So I ended up finding Avi at a career fair, and they brought me to campus to interview with them. It was like a 3-day interview. It was very long on campus, yeah. But again, it was trying to get to know the company and then getting to know you. So in the end, I fell in love with them, and I was given the offer for an internship. So that's kind of how I navigated it. It was kind of serendipitous, but also kind of knowing what direction you're wanting to go to. So if I didn't feel comfortable with it, I wouldn't have gone to the 3-day. I definitely did my own research and saw that this company has a lot of purpose, and their motto and their ideals. Definitely, it was really invigorating for me. So that's kind of how I navigated what industry to go into.
Yeah, and for me, it was also super helpful when it came. I'm not gonna speak about internship because I'm a full-time, 2 years ago. But how I ended up choosing Avi is because, well, not only because they offered me something, but also because when I read about the culture in their website, and I started after those 6 interviews, I could have said no if I felt that something was wrong. But I felt that the values they portrayed were consistent, throughout the whole interview process. And that's already a great sign that you're going to be working in a great environment. And there is no wonder why AbbVie is one of the top companies to work for, according to Great Place to Work. Funny anecdote, I come from a very traditional background in terms of employers, sorry. Investment banking, Chilean retail. And so I always had to kind of dress very conservatively. And they want you to look very kind of old fashioned. And when I got the job from Avi, I had my hair just dyed white, and I didn't know what to do. I was asking my parents, I was asking my friends, should I go back to, paint it black so I can maybe have higher chances for them to hire me? And at one point I said, you know what, I'm just going to be myself. And if they're going to see my potential behind, any, maybe physical or outside prejudge, I think this is the company for me. And here I am 2 years after, super happy. And I haven't hit myself, not even from the recruitment process. So I think whenever you feel comfortable and whenever you feel you can be your true self, just you will know that's the right place for you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think company culture is something that not everybody thinks of right away. I think, like Katrina said, if we just need a job, we need a job. And I tell students that if we need a job, get a job. We all work for a purpose, but really trying to understand the company culture and the effect that it will have on your morale and the kind of work that you do there. So it sounds like AbbVie and CrowdStrike are amazing to work with, and I know they'll be at our job fair next week. So does your company hire on a continual basis or just certain times of the year? I just want to help students know, how can they make sure not to miss out on opportunities?
I would say certain developmental programs have a specific timeline, which usually happens during the summer. So right now, I think it's a key moment for companies that are taking headcount, kind of coming to a conclusion what projects they're going to be doing. So starting March is when they really start ramping up their job postings for full-time positions, which is important. So I think it's throughout the entire kind of spring all the way to summers, where at least I've seen in my company where they have a lot of hiring.
Just in time for folks graduating. That's good.
For CrowdStrike, from what I've seen, well, I mentioned earlier, CrowdStrike is growing immensely, exponentially. So from what I've seen, specifically in the sales program for our summer elite internship, we hire throughout the fall into early spring, give or take. And then we have a year-round extended internship program that we hire on a continual basis, based on how many slots we have filled at that moment. And since it is year-round part-time internship, it works around your school schedule as well. That's the internship I was a part of. So, and then we're always hiring sales development representatives, just because it is a quick turnaround role for promotion from there, I think within 12 to 18 months. So yeah, that's usually on a rolling basis, just based on, need at that moment. So that's just the sales organization for CrowdStrike.
And also just create the profile in the careers website, so you make sure that you get the alerts. In the case, for example, of this early career program that I joined, I know they are open, to get the resumes or the CVs, on a constant basis. I think it's this program, I think it's I'm not sure if you have this in the US. You would have to look in the website. I know we offer that in Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Puerto Rico, actually. Yes, Puerto Rico. So so we do have commercial early career there. So I think, and it opens, I think they're hiring now. So I think the recruitment process started maybe fall last year or even January this year. So just.
That's
It's a great
exciting.
program. I really recommend that. I'm so happy, like seriously.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And it's awesome to hear there's opportunities throughout the US, like throughout the world, right? Like you could definitely go anywhere. Something that this brings up for me is oftentimes our first gen students or alumni, our alumni at Stanislaus, we tend to stay within the region. Could you share your stories? Did you stay close to home? Did you stay close to where you went to university? Was leaving ever a challenge for you? Can you share a little bit about that, about your experience? Y'all know what I mean by leaving.
If I may start, I've always loved to travel. I loved different cultures. I went to the German school here in Colombia, so I was in touch with something that was the opposite of the Colombian culture. I remember the first internship that I did was in Germany, in Hugo Boss, in the headquarters. So I've always searched for just go out of my comfort zone, because out of those experiences, when you really push, the boundaries, it's where you gather anecdotes that are super interesting to tell in interviews to your work colleagues. And, sometimes, yes, of course, sometimes you have to stay in your comfort zone if you want to, kind of like have a better look at yourself. But if you already, I always suggest, just take the chance, and if you can, you just have an experience abroad. I also did an internship in the US. I worked in Paris. Well, right now I'm in Bogota, and I would love to travel again. So yeah, it's you gather experiences, you gather anecdotes, and it's always fun and entertaining to tell.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
So I went. Oh, sorry, Ramiro.
My bad. No, go ahead.
The Zoom glitch, I would say. I would say I went to a college in Chicago, so it's like a metropolitan area, and I moved there. So being first gen, super Hispanic family, that was definitely a shock, but needed for everyone, I think, in my family. So after college, I would say I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because I moved back home. But it goes back to what Juan's saying. I moved back home because I do travel a lot for work. So I would say even with COVID, we're traveling a lot. So I think it's kind of like a cross benefit, getting my feet adjusted, and hopefully I can move out again. But yeah, being at home is really important too.
I'd like to say that I've stayed relatively within the same region as I went to school. I've always wanted to go abroad, and now I have the opportunity to go to England and Australia to go see the other offices, mostly just to catch up with some of the coworkers and some of the friendships that I've developed over my whole internship and now my professional career. But those two are on my list, and but I always come back home because this is where my family's at. These are where some of my close friendships have started and have remained. So it's a lot of fun. It's not always that bad to get out of your comfort zone, but also come back and see the rest of your family.
I will definitely echo that, and being in a similar region to where my family is at the moment. But if it were by them, I would definitely be living at home. I would have gone to, online school from the start, living at home full time, just because, the traditional Hispanic aspect of just staying close to home until, say you're married or something like that. So if it were by them, I would have been home, but they understood how important the opportunities were to, go to college, in a different city, if that's where the opportunity was, or, if the job opportunity was there. And that was one of my main motivators for getting an internship that summer of 2020, because I was really pushing to wanting to be living in a different city, going to that internship. And so that was my main motivator. And obviously now they fully support it in that sense and make a lot of visits over here in Austin where I'm at, and I visit there as well. So definitely having that balance and being close to home, but also visiting every once in a while. But yeah.
I think the importance of knowing nothing's permanent, right? And nothing's unchangeable. I always hear, I don't want to leave because it'll be forever. And I'm like, well, not really. I mean, forever is a long time. Go ahead, Juan.
No. I mean, when I left to study in Barcelona, my idea was to stay in Europe, and look, COVID happened, nobody saw it coming, and here I am back home. And I'm, just go with the flow as well. Just have, the resilience to accept things the way they are, and that there are certain circumstances that are outside, your scope, and just be flexible, right? I have to be flexible, even though I mean, Colombia, politically speaking, is not the best place to be at the moment. Our economy is very unstable, but you know what? Just do whatever to be at least at peace with yourself and with your, environment and your surrounding.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it definitely takes some time to feel like nobody's really judging you, right? Like there are, yes, people have expectations, but ultimately the expectations that are important are the ones you set for yourself and make you feel like yourself, right? Like you said, just being genuine to yourself, comfortable with change, what works for you. I think with that in mind, I did want to ask a little bit about the interview process. I know a few of you had shared 3 days, 6 days. I'm blown away by the whole process. Are there any questions that stood out for you? Like what was either the most bizarre interview question you got, or maybe the best question that you got that you weren't expecting? Is there something that stands out for you? I'd love to share that with our audience.
I don't think I got any bizarre questions that I can think of or remember. I do remember getting a question like, was there a time when you had a situation or conflict, and like how did you get to a resolution or solution, and how did you make that happen? And now being on this side full time and asking that question to potential candidates, some piece of advice that I would definitely vouch for in that sense is to, whenever you're answering these questions, not to just say, the basic, what happened, use a story to paint what happened, and having a story toolbox to show those skills. Say you put on your resume, you're hardworking, you're a team player. Instead of just saying that in your interview, you can tell a story of a time you were a team player or you were hardworking. So rather than just stating it point blank. So that's one piece of advice from being an interviewee candidate to now being the person asking those questions, telling a story.
Juan, did you have your hand raised? Oh,
I just have 2 questions that I got. So one was in the process at AbbVie. I think this was the most challenging one, and they started, you get into the interview and you kind of have to answer very fast, and you kind of enter this remote mode or this automatic mode where they ask and you answer. Make sure you think through what you're going to say. For me, it was super useful to use the CAR method. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's basically context, action, and result. So context, just briefly describe the situation. Action, that's where you want to put the all you did in teamwork or alone or whatever. And the result, just very precise, the outcome of those actions. When they ask me, just tell me about a situation that when you failed and how did you deal with that? I was immediately going to, start with this CAR method. I was going to say, no, this project, blah, blah, blah. And then I remember that I said, well, let me tell you, or I propose you to reframe the question, because for me, my personal belief is that you fail whenever you didn't learn. And I think they were expecting me to tell them about an experience when I made a mistake. And so I ended up reframing the whole question to tell them that, yes, of course, like I did some mistake, but it wasn't a failure for me, or it's not something that I'm ashamed of, because I learned this, and that. And, you know, they saw like my growing process, and I ended up turning, let's say, a negative question into something that was very constructive. The weirdest question that I've ever gotten in an interview was actually for L'Oreal. It was almost like everything was wrapping up. I felt super confident, you know. And then the lady that was going to be my boss, she asked me, Juan, and by the way, what is your favorite painting?
Oh.
And, you know, everything, we were already finishing. And so I was like, and, you know, just creativity and the fact that we have this Latino heritage and that we are super good improvising, and we have this, you know, this, I don't know, I think Latinos, we all have this thing that we can actually use, you know, our advantage, and it's just creativity. And I told her that it's a painting from Frida Kahlo, which is the two Fridas. And I started making this whole story about, you know, how that represents the duality of the human being, you know. And sorry, this was just, I don't know where I got the words from, the story, but that's the weirdest question that I've ever gotten. And just, again, I think the point here is just, we have this amazing heritage that is so rich, and just take advantage of that when it comes to answer with examples, or leveraging even stories from your childhood and your family. I think that shows authenticity, that shows that you, even though you embrace change, you will always be true to yourself and, you know, to your roots.
Thank you for sharing that. I love pulling from all aspects of who you are, right? I think sometimes our students feel they can only speak to formal paid work experience, but the value of the whole person, right? Your social capital, your cultural capital, making sure to not put that to the side. It's definitely a part of who we are. And I hadn't heard of the CAR method, so I wrote that down. But I know Andrea shared the STAR method. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so with not only behavioral questions, but also technical questions, which is what I received a lot. I think the behavioral questions you can Google online. They'll tell you pretty much all of the questions that are possible during that process of interviewing with an HR rep, which is usually round 1 or round 2. But when you actually create your resume and you're sharing your projects and your accomplishments, I think those actual managers that you'll have in your internship or your full-time position really know, because they're also in your major, so they do understand how you got to A and B, so they will ask you about that. So I think the STAR method was really good for at least myself, when I have like an engineering background, so I can just blurb out an answer and it only makes sense in here, but not to everyone else. I think you have to be quite eloquent when you're presenting your ideas and your answers. So the STAR method was really good. I can't think of the acronym at the top of my head, but you just put STAR interviews and they'll tell you. So it's exactly what Steffi was saying. It's a story, I think it's the same thing as CAR method too.
Oh yeah.
But it's important. It's really important, whether it's behavioral or technical questions, to be concise.
And where, as a career counselor, I'm more familiar with the STAR method. I read it as situation, task, action, result, which is similar to CAR. But I definitely use that as a great way to help organize your ideas and your stories, right? Because as Steffi said, you don't want to just give a straight answer, and you don't want to go too long. Sometimes, you know, I get wordy with things, as I am now, but the STAR method can really help you keep yourself organized. And I know I do want to be mindful of our time and of your time as well. So I've been throwing the questions in there from the audience. So if you have any, feel free to send them. I did want to get to a few that are on here. So Hilda asked, how long did it take to finish your degree? I can see how completing internships may seem like it's adding time to your degree, and that may be the case. But how long did you guys take? Did you find that it was affecting your progress? Ramiro, I saw you nodding and maybe had a hands up.
So for me, it took 4.5 years, a little unconventional. I came into UTSA with some credits from high school, meaning that I should have graduated a little early, but I chose to go with electrical engineering at the time. I soon found out that engineering was not for me. I liked the concept of engineering, but putting down the actual math, that's what tripped me up. So I fell back on my second passion, which was at the time HTML coding that I did back in high school, and which eventually led me to cybersecurity, learning how to make sure that these transactions or these processes that we use online, these pages that we visit, are safe to visit without having to have the repercussions of getting your computer infected or your parents' computer infected when you use LimeWire to get music back in the day. So all of this kind of helped put me in the right path, saying, hey, there's going to be some times where you do trip up, where you do realize that a degree is not for you, but there's always going to be a passion, and there's always going to be a career for it.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the concerns our students have, is just not wanting to add time. But I think just the value of what you're learning from the internship is so critical. And you've all shared that it's really helped you explore companies and kind of identify what paths you want to go down. So I appreciate your time. And I don't know if did anyone, Andrea, Stephanie, Juan? Yeah, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just going to add to that. It took me almost 5 years to finish my undergrad. It's also unconventional. It's the fact that I went, to Germany and do that 1-year internship. So I wasn't able to take electives, which was required for me to finish the degree. So I had to come back, take the electives. But you know what, at the end of the day, when I look back to my internship experiences, it's the best thing that has ever happened to me. Sometimes we are in a rush of, just by the time we're 25, we have to be in a certain position, we have to manage teams. And guess what? I've seen people younger than I am that have, let's say, climbed the professional ladder very quick. And sometimes they ended up failing at managing teams, which is something that you build with resilience, with, just the time will come for you to, give the next step. Don't try to push it. Don't try to, to go very fast. This is the first time that I actually have like a big team under my supervision, and I'm almost 33. And I think this is the best time. This is the time that I feel more mature, more put together, that I can really lead with example, with, all these experiences that I've told you in the past, and that I can just be the kind of leader that I always dreamed to be, which is someone that can inspire others, because I don't like to lead just because of the fact that I have a certain position. So yeah, just if you want to do an internship, go ahead. That's my recommendation.
Thank you all so much for your advice and for sharing your stories. I think it's definitely something that helps us all make those connections, right? Helps us see what our major, how it ties to careers, how we're all maybe a little bit afraid to start off with that networking piece and put ourselves out there, but that you have a network, you have folks who are here to support you, whether it's the organizers or the panelists here. Thank you again so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom and your experiences. I encourage all of our students, all of our audience members, reach out. Don't be strangers, and definitely register for the job fair next week. Check out AbbVie and CrowdStrike. But I'll go ahead and pass it on over to Mario. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thanks to the panel. Thank you all so much for spending some time with us. Just a few closing comments. One is with Katrina. She shared her vulnerability regarding, their vulnerability regarding the search, the risky aspects of the job search, and also how that influences your dreams. And they provided practical advice that you can use today. And I think two major comments were: be who you are, because who you are matters. That's something that's going to stay with me. And something that I'll reinforce is to think bigger. The reason that we brought to our students the HSI Career Collaborative was because we can all think bigger in terms of our careers, and we should all be thinking bigger about our careers. And that's why we have companies from all over the country. That way, you all have an opportunity to recruit with these companies. I'm also going to invite Yalitza Howard, Director of Career Services, Texas A&M International University, or TAMU. She'll be joining us in a second as well. And with the panel in regards to just the nuances of the internship and full-time process, right? It's complicated. It's not streamlined. There's a lot of processes involved. I appreciated how Juan discussed leveraging LinkedIn insights, learning about who you're going to be talking to or who you're going to be connecting with. Get to know a little bit about them. That way you can share that insight during your conversation. Steffi also discussed allowing yourself to be uncomfortable meeting people. The career search is about being uncomfortable. It is about, especially if you're first gen, if many of our backgrounds, in terms of not having that social capital, you will be uncomfortable, but the payoff is incredibly high. And that's why we're all here to support you, because we all believe in you. And so we're excited about what's coming up next week. And Steffi also discussed accepting that you will be uncomfortable. I noticed that Joy Jackson Guilford is also, she's with AbbVie. She's one of our sponsors. She was in the chat. So I just want to thank Joy for joining us. It's always great to have Joy as one of our sponsors involved. So Joy, would you like to say anything? I see you on the screen.
Thank you, Mario. No, just wanted to commend the great program that you all held today for your students. From the beginning, I was able to catch at the beginning around the resume tips, as well as this afternoon. And I think it's absolutely amazing that you're providing these opportunities. I did add in the chat that we are having our externship and internship fair next week, and I added the link there for you all to register. So it's actually happening on February 22nd, right before your day, but would like for you all to go on, see if there are any opportunities that you're interested in, and please, by all means, apply for those opportunities, but most importantly, be a part of that fair, because we will have recruiters there, and you'll have on-the-spot interviews, and it will be virtual, but it'll be on-the-spot interviews, kind of brief interviews, and then they will be sliding you off for full interviews. And so hopefully you all will have the opportunity. It's from 2 to 5 p.m. on the 22nd Central Standard Time. Thank you, Mario, for the time.
Of course. Thank you, Joy. Thank you for your partnership. So I'm going to turn it over to Yalitza, who will be discussing our new scholarship opportunity.
And at this time, I would like to thank everyone for participating in the Hispanic Serving Institutions Career Collaborative Professional Summit. Our group is now celebrating its second year of existence, and as such, we are pleased to announce the establishment of our inaugural HSI Career Collaborative Scholarship. So this scholarship has been created to acknowledge and honor outstanding students by awarding them one of three $1,000 scholarships. So applicants must be a current student in good standing at a participating HSI Career Collaborative school, have a minimum GPA of 2.5, submit a short essay describing their goals and merit of the scholarship, and provide a resume in PDF format. The HSI Collaborative invites and encourages all students to apply by June 30th, 2022, via the QR code that's going to be provided on the slides, or via the link that's being made available in the chat. And by the way, this application has been made available via Qualtrics, who is hiring and will also be at the fair next week. So students, we encourage you to create your schedules with them and the many other employers who are participating in the fair. Thank you, Mario.
Thanks, Yalitza. And I believe we're going to show the QR code as well here. And so again, not only is are we accepting applications through Qualtrics? Qualtrics will be at the event next week. And so finally, again, just want to thank our sponsors. It was great to have panelists representing CrowdStrike and AbbVie, our platinum sponsors. The excitement when we're meeting with employers regarding this career collaborative is amazing. And I just want to reinforce this event is open to all students, regardless of background, that are students and alumni that are part of any of the HSIs that we discussed earlier, the 14 HSIs. So if you were invited and your HSI is represented, you can apply for the scholarship and you can attend our event next week. I want to make sure that all students understand that it is for all students. The purpose of this event is to create opportunities for all of our students. Finally, just want to thank you all for joining us here. This is, again, as Aelita mentioned, our second year with programming, and frankly, it's bigger than ever, and it will continue growing. Our list of sponsors, our list of partners, our list of recruiters is growing.